Hello everybody, this is Yasmeen from Yarkspiri fantasyart.com. Today I'm actually working on a collaboration for Pinups for Cancer. That's the website name. I did mention this website a couple of weeks ago when I was drawing my dark elf. And when I mentioned that gentleman's website, he actually turned out to be a subscriber to my channel. So he actually communicated to me that he was interested in doing a collaboration. So we did plan out a couple weeks ago that we were going to do a dark elf. So for this reason, we decided that he was going to draw the overall character design and I was going to paint it. Now, when he provided me with the basic illustration, he had the general structure figured out, or the general elements that he wanted in the piece. He also provided me with reference material on the color palettes, and he also gave me notes on what he was hoping to have on this character. So, taking all those into consideration, this is what I decided to work with. So as you can see, I have his original drawing underneath, and I'm actually just painting on top of it with an additional new layer. And I'm using his actual initial drawing as a reference and guide to the actual piece that I'm working on now. Now, when I was actually figuring out the armor and the boots, especially as you can see me currently working on, I did want to make sure that they followed the contours of the character extremely closely. Because this character is supposed to look sexy, and because she is supposed to look very appealing to the eye, I did want it to fit with her overall shape. So most of the shapes of the armor are plated and are designed to actually fit more closely to her actual body. Some changes I had to do, I had to fix, as you can see right now, I'm actually fixing up the perspective on the feet, because once I planned out and plotted out the actual initial perspective that I was given, I did have to make some changes and tweaks to make sure that it worked correctly. Now right now I'm actually working on the shading elements. So what I did is I actually created a basic gray color to work with, and that acts as my mid color. So then I'm only adding on highlights and darker areas on top of this mid-tone. So this simplifies and speeds up the painting process. It does create, however, some additional problems for printing and editing, as you'll see later on in this video. Now, one of the criterias was that I keep very closely to the initial face design, so I didn't do very much changes to that at all. I stuck very closely to what I was given. But I did have a lot more free reign on the armor design and how to render out the rest of the details. Now, because I'm doing a collaboration, obviously I want to stick fairly closely to the initial design and just work with that. So there's very few elements that I actually modified other than the boots and the leather portion on the arms. Mainly because the rest of it was extremely well designed, so I didn't have to do any changes. It fit with the character, it fit with the pose, so for this reason there was no need to do any changes. So you can see I'm just adding the areas that are overlapping on the skin. I'm making sure to add that extra bit of material to make sure that it reads as actually being material that's covering her. If you don't include that, it tends to look as if it's almost a spandex-like material that doesn't have finished edges. So to prevent that, it is important to add that additional border. You'll also notice that as I work on this piece, I tend to add the outer highlights first before. There's a couple of reasons why I do that. The first one is to make sure that she stands out from the background, which is extremely important, because the focus is the character, not necessarily the background. And the second functional reason is that it acts as a backlight. And what a backlight does is it adds that very sharp rim behind the character. That's also a very important thing to add in, depending on the lighting of the environment. Now for the neck piece, the instructions did mention that they needed to look ripped up and disheveled. So for this reason, I started actually with the dark colors. The reason why I did that is it helped me exaggerate the highlights afterwards by just adding a tiny bit of highlights. Once again, you'll notice that I added the white highlights around the character first. That's just to make her stand out more from the background. This also gives me the added benefit if I need to turn off my line layer. I do have that option as well. Now I do that very rarely in this case, just given the type of character design and the type of painting style I'm using. This style is a little bit different than what you normally see me do because it needs to fit with the character design. Now I will, if you do want additional information about this gentleman's website and what he does, you can visit the link below this video. I'm going to include it in the description, so just expand the window and you'll be able to see it. And also his website is featured on my website as well. Obviously for a great cause, it's worthwhile. So I did feature his site. Now we're unsure as to how the process will be for the bidding of this image. We don't know if it's going to be auctioned off, silent bid, and how that will be done. Any updates on that should be posted via my feed and on my website mainly as well, or his website. It is possible that if we do a printed version of this drawing, that it might actually be possible that we both sign this piece. We're still debating that though, because his rates are obviously significantly lower than the ones that I offer. So once we get some more details on how we'll be actually doing that, we'll both try to post on our website what the changes or how to purchase this illustration will be. So do look forward to that in the future updates. Now for the zipper, it wasn't in the initial sketch. I did put that on a separate layer just so that if I needed to move it over, I'd have that extra flexibility. Now for the background element, what I did is I used the polygonal lasso tool. And what that allowed me to do is it allowed me to select the area, because I'd already plotted it out sketch-wise, the perspective. I was able to just click and select those elements and then fill them with a solid black. Once I filled them with a solid black, I changed the transparency to fit the level of lighting that I wanted in that area. Now the only problem with using this tool is it does create hard edges. So for this reason I had to go in afterwards and just soften some of those edges to make sure that they look more appealing. You can see me doing that on the wall right now. And also by having this on a separate layer, what this also allows me to do is to select all the elements within that layer and create a new layer in which I can add the textures. All the textures that were used in this video were actually painted by using the brushes that I have set as my default brushes. Now I do have specialized brushes that I got online. I actually got my brushes from an artist known as Darken, so if you type in theartofdarken.com you should be able to find him. He's a really good artist, so I do recommend you guys check him out too. Now for the sword, I did want the contrast levels to be fairly sharp, but what I ended up doing is I ended up creating too sharp of a contrast, so I had to go in afterwards and lighten the levels of that layer just to make sure that it fit. I also had to fix the perspective on the sword because the sword was not in the correct perspective. Now I do have a very specific brush for doing the hair. It does do most of the work for me, but there is a significant amount of work that you have to do afterwards in order to make it tie into the rest of the image. So although it does save a lot of time, I wouldn't call having a hairbrush an absolute necessity, but it does save time. That's about the only added benefit. What I normally end up doing is I'll normally, for the main part of the hair, is draw that with the specific brush, but then I'll go in with either a soft brush or a hard brush and just add the little frays of hair strands. That's really important in order to make it look realistic. So right now I'm adding the shadows for this character. That's an extremely important step for this. If you don't add the shadows, then what happens is it tends to look like the character is floating on the surface, and that's obviously something you don't want. So for this reason, I do take quite a bit of time to make sure that the shadows are correct. What you saw me do there is I just turned off a layer that was above all my grayscale portion of this drawing. What I had done is I had created a separate layer and I set the layer blending option to color, and that means it just adds an overall color without changing the values of all my painted area. It's a really easy thing to do, but it makes a huge difference in your workflow and it saves you a lot of time, which is why I tend to use that technique. Now, as I'm working on the corset, it is important that I make sure that the corset does stand out separately from her skin tone. So I did have to do quite a few changes to make sure that that's still read as something completely different. You can see me actually darkening the boots and all the letter areas for that reason, just to make sure that they do read separately. Now I was given a very specific color palette to work with. So for this reason, you'll see very specific colors that I added. I added the pinks and the purples. Both those colors were specified in the description, which saved me a lot of time because I didn't have to figure out on my own what colors to use. The gentleman also gave me some reference material from which to work with that had the color palettes and had the general design elements that he was looking for. So in combination of those two items, it really made a huge difference in that it simplified how long it actually took me to do this piece. Now, there is a couple changes that I didn't record. There's about an additional hour to 2 hours of work that I did not record, mainly because I was sending proofs to him to make sure that it was what he was looking for in the finalized drawing. And that is important too, because I'm doing a collaboration with this image, I do have to make sure that it fits both his specifications and my style as well. So it is important for us to communicate back and forth. So before I even started painting this illustration, I did send him a rough sketch so that he had a general idea. So this is finalized illustration. We're still figuring out how we're going to make this available online for purchase. But once that's ironed out, we should be posting an update as well on, I'll be posting definitely one on my website and on my YouTube channel for you guys to know about. And I do expect him to post it also on his. So thank you for watching and take care.